Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress with coverage of round 4 of the 2017 Norway Chess tournament. An exciting round, and in this video I will show you the game between Levon Aronian from Armenia with white against Aronian-Carlsen from Norway, the world champion, with black. Let's get into it. Both players had drawn their first 3 games. And let's see what happened after the rest day. Aronian opened d4, d5 from Carlsen, c4, c6, knight f3, knight f6, knight c3, e6, we are in the semi-Slav, e3, a6, b3, and bishop b4, which is one of the variations. And here, even though white just had played b3, it's not great to go with the bishop to b2, because then you get knight e4, the knight on c3 is pinned, you can play rook c1 to defend your knight, but then you get queen a5, and it's a little bit unpleasant for white. So bishop d2 is the normal move here. Knight bd7, bishop d3, both players castled, queen e7. Here Aronian plays a move that he had prepared, as he said himself, in 2003, 14 years ago, bishop c2. But he also said it's an idea that is played in several positions. Also, if black chooses a setup with b7, b5, then also the idea that Aronian shows here is possible. We see in a minute what the idea behind that move is. Rook d8 from Carlsen, and here comes the move a3, sacrificing a pawn. But not only a pawn, because after bishop takes a3, Aronian took with a rook and sacrifices an exchange as well. He said afterwards that his original intention was to play e4, and then he showed this variation: d takes e4, knight takes e4, knight takes e4, bishop takes e4, and bishop b4, and he felt this was not too much for white, so he decided to give an exchange with rook takes a3. Carlsen has to take, and now c5, which cuts off the black queen, and white has good compensation for the material he has sacrificed. Here Aronian said afterwards that he wasn't sure if black had to move e5, which he called a critical move. But this is how he approached it. He said, let him play it and I'll calculate it. And he said, worst case scenario, I have a repetition, because the move e5 is not freeing the queen up. He thought he could get a repetition with something like knight b1, queen a2, knight c3, queen a3, and knight b1. But Carlsen did not play e5, he played b6. Aronian answered with b4, and you cannot take that pawn, because then knight takes d5, attacking the queen, and after queen c4, knight e7 check, king f8, and knight takes c6, and white is better. So after b4, Carlsen played knight e4, Aronian took, d takes e4, and bishop takes e4. Carlsen played rook b8, and Aronian also thought this was the best move on pinning the c-pawn, with the idea of a6, a5. If you try a5 straight away, then there is b5, although Aronian said that he had planned queen b1, which is also a good move. But he showed this variation after b5. You cannot take on b5 because your rook will get lost in the corner. But if you play b takes c5, b takes c6, hitting the knight, knight to f6, then you might think you're winning on the spot with c7, attacking both rooks, but then black has rook d5, and after bishop takes d5, knight takes d5, queen b1, white is also better. As said, Carlsen played rook b8 instead of a5, and now more fireworks. Levon Aronian sacrificed a piece here. The classical bishop sacrifice on h7, we see it in this game. Bishop takes h7. Carlsen took the bishop, and knight g5 check. And now there's a lot of very spectacular variations after king g6. Aronian showed the following: queen g4, and then f5 hitting the queen. Queen has to keep protecting the knight. Queen g3, and king f6 to get out of the attack, the discovered attack from the queen. Then d5. Aronian showed here the move e takes d5, but the computer thinks that c takes d5 is better. Anyway, let's continue with Aronian's variation after e takes d5. Then queen d6 check. King takes knight. e4 check. The bishop gives check to the king. King h5. And here Aronian, after the game, showed queen a7, queen e7. Of course, if this had come on the board, he would have calculated that queen f4 will checkmate in 2 moves. He showed queen e7 and king g6, e takes f5 check, king h7, queen h4 check, king g8, queen takes rook, king back to h7, and he said bishop f4, and he said I'll mate black somehow, everything comes in. Well, there is no checkmate here. The mate that Aronian was talking about was earlier when he played queen e7. He should have played queen f4. If this variation had come on the board, I'm sure that Aronian would have won, would have found the mate. But this is the variation he gave immediately after the game. So it's good to see that these top grandmasters are also human and can mix up variations. So back to the game. After knight g5 check, Carlsen did not go to g6. He went to g8. Queen h5. And Aronian said that Carlsen played really well in this part of the game. He found the only moves. Knight f6, hitting the queen. Queen infiltrates. King h8, only move. Queen c7. Attacking both rooks. Bishop d7, only move. Defending both rooks. Knight f7 check. King h7. Knight takes d8. Rook c8. Queen takes b6. Knight d5, hitting the queen. And it is quite amazing that Aronian had calculated, when he took on h7, he had calculated up to here. He had seen all the variations. Okay, he did not properly calculate that king g6 variation, but as I said, if it had come on the board, he would have seen that mating idea. Quite amazing that Aronian sacrificed his bishop. Bishop takes h7 check on the 17th move, and he had seen all the variations up to move 24. Aronian played queen a7. Carlsen took on d8. It's time now, after all this sacrificing, to count material, and we see that white has 3 pawns for the knight. And he's a better position. Also, Magnus Carlsen was getting low on time, so Aronian had good winning chances here. e4, kicking that centralized knight, and here Aronian expected knight f6, and he showed this variation. Bishop g5, queen takes pawn, and then e5, using the pin of that knight. Queen takes d4 is the best move, then e takes f6, g takes, queen c7, hitting the rook, rook c8, bishop takes f6, both queens are hanging, queen takes f2 check, rook takes, and bishop e5. Aronian thought this was black's best chance, but he thought he would still have good winning chances here. Material is equal, but black has weak pawns, and of course his bishop on d7 is a horrible piece compared to that beautiful bishop on e5. Good winning chances for white. Back to the game. So after e4, Carlsen did not play knight f6, he played queen d3, counter-attacking white's bishop. And here Aronian took the knight, and he commented that he said, if I'm blind I can still lose the game, because another option seems to be bishop g5, which is not a good move, counter-attacking the rook. But then black takes on e4, and if you're really blind, you take on d8, but then you get checkmated. It's a nice variation. Knight f4 threatens checkmate on g2. f3 is the only move, but then queen e2 renews the checkmate threat on g2. Rook f2 is the only move. Queen e1 check. Rook back. Knight e2 check. King has to go in the corner, and queen takes f1 checkmate. A very nice checkmating pattern. Aronian had seen this, that he could not play bishop g5 and bishop takes d8. And as said, he took on d5. He took the knight. Carlsen took the bishop. Queen c7. Queen g5 to protect the rook. D takes c6. And now you cannot go with your bishop to e8, because then queen b7 and the c-pawn walks to c8. So bishop c8 has to be played instead of bishop e8. Aronian played h3, making some air for the king. And queen d5 from Carlsen. And now Aronian brought his rook into play. He wants to checkmate the black king. Rook d1. e5 from Carlsen. Rook d3. He's not worried about the d4 pawn. Carlsen took on d4. And now the very strong move, queen e7. And the mating net will get closed around the poor black king. Bishop f5. Rook g3. With a checkmate threat on g7. Bishop g6 was Carlsen's last move, because he resigned after queen h4 check. White wins. If you play king g8, then you lose the bishop. If you interpose the queen on h5, then you lose the rook on d8. And if you interpose the bishop on h5, then there's the very nice move, rook g5, attacking two pieces, and that also wins the game for white. A wonderful game from Levon Aronian. This wonderful idea with bishop c2, protecting the b3 pawn, and then sacrificing the exchange on a3, cutting off the queen with c5, and then more fireworks with the classic bishop sacrifice on h7. White's pieces infiltrated, and in the end the very instructive way to bring the rook into the game for an mating attack on the black king. What a wonderful game. And here's a nice final quote from the winner of this game. Levon Aronian said, "I want to fight, and it's pleasant to play against a guy as strong as Magnus who also wants to fight. It's always exciting, much more exciting than playing against a guy who wants to make a draw." Heartwarming words from Levon Aronian. There were some unhappy people because only 2 games got decided in the first 3 rounds, 2 out of 15. But as you can see here, we had a very productive 4th round. Not only did Aronian beat Carlsen, Nakamura had a very nice win over Vachier-Lagrave, and Anish Giri beat Anand. Caruana against Kramnik and So against Karyakin were hard-fought draws. That brings us to the standings after round 4. Nakamura is the sole leader with 3 points. Kramnik and Aronian on +1 and 4 players on 50%. Carlsen and Vachier-Lagrave -1 and Anand so far has only managed to get 2 draws and he lost his 2 other games. Round 5 will be played on Sunday the 11th of June and I will be here after the round to tell you what happened. Hope you liked the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the Chess to Impress channel. I'm looking forward to your comments. And if you liked the video, it would be great if you could share it on YouTube. You also may want to check out my Chess 2 Progress channel. The link is in the description box. This is Rick from Chess to Impress. Thank you very much for watching.